I'm Austin Cheney here in the 13 WMAZ Weather Center, and we are continuing to monitor a very dangerous Category 5 Hurricane Dorian that is now bearing down on the Bahamas. Here's what we have as the latest advisory. Right now, Category 5 hurricane wind sustained at 185 miles an hour. The hurricane hunters have been in the storm today and continue to find the pressure dropping, which means that the storm is still not yet done strengthening just yet. Just within the last couple of hours or so, the hurricane has made landfall on Manowar Cay and Scotland Cay there in the northern Bahamas, and both of those islands are almost completely in the eye of the hurricane right now, so total devastation is likely ongoing there. The northern Bahamas will continue to be lashed by these winds over the next couple of hours as the system slowly moves towards the west at about 7 miles an hour. What's going on with the storm right now is it's beginning to slow down as the currents that are steering it begin to weaken, and as that happens, the storm is going to slowly lose some intensity as it moves towards the west, but still not enough to make it a less dangerous storm. The official forecast from the Hurricane Center keeps it as a Category 5 hurricane during the duration of its time in the Bahamas. Then once we get towards Monday, the slow-moving, strong and dangerous hurricane will start making that turn towards the north as a Category 4 storm. The latest forecast from the Hurricane Center still keeps the center of circulation just off the Florida coastline, but today we want to go ahead and stress that the cone of uncertainty conveys uncertainty. That's kind of in the name. So even though it is more likely that the system does stay offshore, the core of the hurricane stays offshore, it is not completely out of the question yet that the system does make a landfall in Florida. So even though it's more likely that it doesn't, we just can't rule that out. Also, regardless if the storm stays offshore or not, impacts are still going to be likely along the Florida and Georgia coastlines. There could be some tropical storm to hurricane force gusts as the system passes just towards the east. As far as our forecast here in central Georgia, notice we've been taken completely out of the cone of uncertainty. The likelihood that we see direct impacts locally is now pretty slim. Here's how it plays out on some of the forecast models. Over the next couple hours, the system will continue churning through the Bahamas, as you can see, staying organized as it does so. Late in the day on Monday is when the system will begin making that turn towards the north. An unfortunate trend, though, in the models today has been slightly further to the west. When these systems slow down, the forecast models have a difficult time pinpointing exactly when they're going to make their turns, and because of that, the RPM has trended further to the west today, bringing stronger impacts along Florida's east coast there. Then we're going to get into the extended models as the American GFS model takes over. And as the system passes us here in central Georgia, notice, even though there's been a slight westward trend today, we still stay on the cleaner side of the storm with less wind and less rainfall. So overall impacts here are still looking pretty slim. Here's the latest on the wind gust forecast as the system passes by Florida. Again, here we are on Monday, your Labor Day at noon, and the system will still be offshore. It will get a little closer to shore throughout the day. 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the storm is still offshore. But notice, just a deviation in about 50 miles can make the difference of only tropical storm force gusts along Florida's east coast or potentially a major hurricane on Florida east coast. So you're kind of playing with fire if you still have interest along the coast there. The system will be slowly weakening as it moves up the coast and towards the Georgia coast, but still, same story applies here in northern Florida and southeast Georgia. A deviation in the forecast track can make a big difference in those coastal forecasts. By Wednesday afternoon, this is when we could see some effects locally as our wind gusts are going to increase a little bit across central Georgia to the 25 or 35 mile an hour range. But again, like we saw just a couple minutes ago, we are going to stay on the dry side of the storm, so any gusts that we have in this range really won't be that big of a deal. The system will continue sliding towards the northeast as we go into Thursday, and the Carolinas could potentially have a landfall if the current forecast stays the way it is. By Friday, any wind gusts that we have will not be related to Dorian. Here's the latest rainfall forecast as we go through the next couple days. This is a very important part of our forecast. We have stayed on the dry side of the storm throughout the duration of this forecast, with models indicating almost no rainfall as the system passes by. That's going to keep our ground nice and dry and help to limit any wind impacts we may have. If we have gusts to 25 or 35 miles an hour with dry ground, we're going to be just fine here in central Georgia. So we'll continue getting updates all day long here at WMAZ. I'll have more updates coming up on Facebook, online, and later today on 13 WMAZ News.